In days, the galaxy's most brutal war ended when humans joined the fight, and the Gamilons wished we had stayed out. Plasma rifles still smoked in the hands of grizzled veteran Zachary Henry. He peered across the battlefield, on Sigma Draconis 66, a human colony world now carpeted with the seared corpses of friends and foes alike. Both valiant human soldiers and faithful alien allies, noble Kroll and zealous Zygons, lay crumpled on the blood-stained soil. Pungent fumes of charred flesh choked his lungs. Twisted metal wreckage smoldered everywhere. The colony's proud structures now flattened ruins. Zachary thumbed his comms. Baseplate Zulu 6. Gamilons repelled, but 3/4 of the platoon is gone, sir. Colony is lost. Requesting evac. Over. Zulu 6, no go on evac at this time. Gamilon ships are... The channel filled with static. Zachary cursed as dozens of enemy craft descended on plumes of fire, disgorging hundreds of bloodthirsty Gamilon warriors, hungry for slaughter. The remaining human forces braced for a savage fight against hopeless odds. A blade-shaped vessel touched down. A towering armored creature stomped out. General Neso, the Gamilon scourge of Sarthos 9 himself. Surrender now, pathetic apes. Kneel before the Gamilon supremacy. Zachary raised his rifle and sent bolts of superheated plasma into Neso's chestplate. The particle beams splashed harmlessly off the Gamilon's hardened battle carapace. Neso's guttural laughter boomed as he jabbed a clawed finger skyward. Behold the instrument of your species' annihilation! A monstrous dreadnought materialized from the clouds, an obsidian spearhead bristling with continent-wrecking cannons. 1 hour to evacuate this world, primates, before it is scoured clean of your filth. Neso lumbered back to his dropship. Zachary spat blood onto the broken flagstones, watching the Gamilon horde assemble their ranks for the final assault. Another human planet was poised to fall before the supremacy's relentless advance. The Gamilons marched from star to star, trampling human resistance, shrugging off losses, conquering and killing without mercy. The humans needed a miracle now, or this war would leave humanity extinct. As the menacing Gamilon dropship rocketed skyward, Zachary's radio blared with a frantic transmission from High Command. The voice of his superior, Admiral Vance, crackled through the static, his tone grim and urgent. Zachary, the Gamilon bastards have hit us where it hurts. They've taken the Epsilon Eridani shipyards. Our fleet's supply of new ships is cut off. This is a crippling blow. Zachary clenched his fists, his heart sinking at the news. The loss of those vital shipyards would severely hamper the human war effort. Without a steady stream of fresh vessels to replace combat losses, the human fleets would be worn down to nothing. Admiral Vance continued, his words clipped and terse. I'm giving the order for all our remaining forces to pull back immediately. Regroup at Bastion. That planet is a fortress. We'll make our stand there. Understood, Admiral, Zachary replied, his voice heavy with the weight of what this meant. But, sir, that means abandoning Sigma Draconis 6. We can't just leave the colonists here to... We have no choice, soldier, Vance barked, cutting him off. The survival of our entire species is at stake. Fall back to Bastion, that's an order. Vance out. The channel went dead. Zachary relayed the orders to his battered troops, hating every word. As the human ships hastily fled the planet's orbit, the looming Gamilon dreadnought opened fire. Continent-wrecking plasma blasts rained down on Sigma Draconis 6 surface, ruthlessly bombarding the colony into oblivion. The once thriving human settlement was reduced to molten slag in minutes, along with any colonists who hadn't evacuated in time. Zachary watched the horrific orbital bombardment through the viewports, his heart filled with impotent rage. Hours later on Bastion, Zachary joined the ranks of grim-faced soldiers in a somber briefing. Admiral Vance stood before them, his face lined with exhaustion and barely contained anger. I won't mince words. The situation is dire. In the past week alone, the Gamilons have conquered a dozen human worlds. Our defensive lines are collapsing on every front. At this rate, the Gamilon fleets will reach Earth itself within a month. A stir of dismay and fury rippled through the assembled troops. Earth, The cradle of humanity in enemy hands. Unthinkable. Vance raised a hand for quiet. And we're not the only ones. The Kroll, the Zygons, all our allies are being steamrolled. The Gamilons are winning this war, and winning it decisively. Zachary looked around at his fellow soldiers, seeing his own anger and desperation mirrored in their eyes. The utter defeat etched on every face was a gut punch. Was this truly the end for humanity? Were they doomed to fall before the Gamilon war machine? As the briefing ended, and the dispirited soldiers began to disperse, Zachary was approached by Commander Nesso, his Kroll counterpart. The reptilian alien pulled him aside, his yellow eyes intense. "Zachary, my friend, I have vital news from our spies," Nesso hissed urgently. "The Gamilons will soon strike at your shipyards in the Tau Ceti system. If those yards fall, your fleets will have no means to replace losses. You'll be helpless before the enemy." A shiver ran down Zachary's spine. The Tau Ceti shipyards were the beating heart of the human war effort. Losing them would be the final nail in humanity's coffin. Nesso gripped Zachary's arm. "I have a plan. A desperate plan, but perhaps our last hope. I need you to join me on a mission to destroy the Gamilon invasion force before they reach Tau Ceti. If we can shatter them there, we may buy your people the time they need. Will you fight alongside me in this, Zachary?" Zachary met the Kroll's gaze, seeing the same desperate determination he felt. This was it, humanity's final gambit, their last chance to turn the tide before it swept them all away. "I'm with you, Nesso," Zachary said firmly. "Let's make those Gamilon bastards bleed." Zachary and Nesso gathered the remnants of their battered forces, a ragtag fleet of human and Kroll vessels. They set course for the Oort cloud on the fringes of the Tau Ceti system, racing against time to waylay the Gamilon armada before it could strike the shipyards. As they entered the vast expanse of icy debris, Zachary ordered the ships to power down, concealing their signatures among the frozen fragments. The Allied ships drifted in the silent cloud, waiting with coiled intensity as the Gamilon fleet approached. The enemy vessels entered the trap, unaware of the danger lurking in the celestial minefield. Zachary clenched the arms of his command chair, his knuckles white. He thumbed the comms. "All ships, open fire!" Human and Kroll ships erupted from concealment, disgorging storms of missiles and energy beams from all sides. The fusillade caught the Gamilons completely off guard. The first volleys tore through their formations, crippling a dozen ships in fiery explosions. Shields collapsed and hulls ruptured, spilling Gamilon bodies into the void. But the Gamilons recovered with terrifying speed, their ships whirling to face the ambush. Plasma cannons flared to life, unleashing devastating torrents of superheated energy. Zachary's ship shuddered as a blast slammed into their shields. Alarms wailed and sparks cascaded from overloaded consoles. "Sir, direct hit! Weapons are offline, shields at 20%, the weapons officer shouted. A moment later, another plasma beam punched through the weakened shields and scythed across the bridge. The weapons officer and helmsman vanished in a blaze of vaporized flesh, their screams swallowed by the roar of venting atmosphere. Zachary leaped into the helmsman's seat, his hands flying over the controls. He wrenched the ship into a desperate corkscrew, narrowly evading the next plasma blast. Nesso's Kroll warship swept past Zachary's viewport, launching a blistering barrage of missiles. A Gamilon cruiser vanished in a blinding fireball as the missiles struck home. But even as more Gamilon ships died, the enemy pressed their attack with renewed ferocity. The Gamilons still outnumbered the ambushers 3-1, and their ships were technologically superior. Zachary and Nesso fought with grim determination, but their losses mounted with sickening speed. Human and Kroll ships exploded all around them, torn apart by the relentless plasma fire. Despair gripped Zachary's heart as he saw the Gamilons cutting through his dwindling forces like a scythe through wheat. It wasn't enough. They'd bought time with the ambush, but the Gamilons were simply too strong. The shipyards at Tau Ceti were surely doomed, and with them, humanity's last hope. Just as all seemed lost, a new wave of contacts emerged from hyperspace behind the Gamilon fleet. Zachary stared at his scope in disbelief. Dozens of ships, but not Gamilon, Kroll, Zygon, or any other design he recognized. They were human vessels, but of incredibly archaic configuration, pre-alliance designs from centuries ago, before humanity made contact with alien races. But as the new arrivals opened fire, Zachary's shock turned to awe. These ancient ships were armed with weapons far in advance of anything the Alliance had, even beyond Gamilon technology. Lances of blinding energy and swarms of quantum torpedoes ripped into the Gamilon rear, tearing the enemy ships to pieces with brutal efficiency. The Gamilon fleet reeled under the onslaught, their formation disintegrating into chaos. Zachary watched in stunned amazement as the new human ships tore the once invincible Gamilon armada to shreds. In a matter of minutes, the mighty enemy fleet was reduced to drifting wreckage and guttering flames. It was a slaughter, the Gamilons unable to withstand the strangers' overwhelming technological edge. As the last Gamilon ship exploded into oblivion, a hail pinged on Zachary's comm from the lead newcomer vessel. He opened the channel, and a man's scarred face filled the view screen. The stranger had the hardened look of a veteran warrior, his eyes haunted by untold battles. "This is Admiral Stark of the Lost Colonies," the man said, his voice gruff. "We stand with you, brothers and sisters of Earth." "Lost Colonies," Zachary replied, his face slack with astonishment. "I thought you were just a myth." "No myth, Commander. We're quite real. When the old Earth governments formed the Alliance centuries ago, some humans refused to join. We struck out on our own, seeking to forge our own path among the stars. In our isolation, we advanced far beyond Alliance science. We've been watching this war from afar." Admiral Stark leaned forward, his gaze boring into Zachary's. "But now the Gamilons threaten the survival of our entire species. We can no longer stand idly by. The Lost Colonies have come to join the fight, and together we will break the Gamilons and secure humanity's future among the stars." With the Lost Colonies' ancient yet hyper-advanced warships at the vanguard, the united human and Kroll armada sallied forth to reclaim the conquered worlds. Zachary stood on the bridge of his battered vessel, watching in awe as Stark's juggernaut of a flagship disintegrated entire squadrons of Gamilon craft with each volley from its world-wrecking cannons. Nesso's reptilian face split in a fierce grin as his ship pulled alongside Zachary's. "Today we take back what is ours," the Kroll commander snarled over the comms. "Damn right we do," Zachary replied, matching Nesso's predatory smile. The Allied fleet tore through the Gamilon battle lines like claws through flesh. The enemy ships wheeled and floundered, disgorging escape pods as they came apart under the onslaught. Zachary's gunners whooped with savage joy as they pounded the Gamilon hulls into scrap. One by one, the invaded planets fell back into human and Kroll hands. Zachary and Nesso led the ground assaults, their troops fighting shoulder to shoulder, pushing the Gamilons back city by blood-soaked city. The once triumphant invaders turned tail and fled, unable to withstand the resurgent human Kroll wrath. Amidst the frenzy of liberation, word reached Zachary of an audacious strike by Admiral Stark into the heart of the Gamilon Empire. Stark's ships carved a path of destruction to the enemy homeworld itself, ravaging its orbital defenses and raining nuclear destruction on the military hardpoints below. The Gamilon Emperor, his palace citadel quaking under the bombardment, frantically sued for peace. But Stark rejected the plea outright, his scarred face cold and unyielding on the view screen. "Your people have reaped a whirlwind of blood and fire, and now you will pay the price for your aggression," Stark growled. "Unconditional surrender. That is the only way your species survives the day." With his doomsday arsenal depleted and his homeworld's destruction assured, the Emperor at last capitulated. The ceasefire orders rippled across the stars, and one by one, the Gamilon warships and armies laid down their arms in abject defeat. On 100 worlds, humans and Krolls raised their voices in exultant victory cheers. Zachary watched his soldiers embrace, weeping with relief and joy, yet his own eyes stung with bitter tears as he remembered the comrades who would never see this moment. So many noble lives snuffed out by Gamilon savagery. Nesso gripped Zachary's arm, his alien eyes reflecting the same sorrow and resolve. Never again, the Kroll said softly. We rebuild, together, humans and Kroll, brothers in arms forevermore. Brothers in arms, Zachary echoed, clasping Neso's clawed hand firmly. As he looked up at the stars, Zachary felt the shift in galactic tides. The lost colonies had returned, and humanity would never again cower before alien threats. A new age had dawned, one where humankind stood tall and proud among the great powers of the cosmos. The war was over, but the struggle to build a lasting peace was just beginning. Zachary squared his shoulders, ready to face the challenges ahead. As the shattered galaxy began the slow process of rebuilding, Zachary found himself called to an urgent meeting with Neso. The Kroll commander's face was grim as he handed Zachary a datapad filled with intercepted transmissions and decoded files. Zachary, my friend, I have uncovered a terrible truth, Neso said, his voice heavy. The Gamilon War, all the death and destruction, it was instigated by my own people, a cabal of corrupt Kroll leaders seeking to weaken their rivals and seize power. Zachary's eyes widened as he scanned the data, his blood running cold. Messages showed Kroll officials sabotaging diplomatic efforts, arranging false flag attacks, funneling weapons to the Gamilons, all while posing as humanity's staunchest allies. This can't be, Zachary whispered, his fists clenching. Neso, are you certain? I wish I wasn't, Neso replied, his head bowing in shame. My own government betraying everything we fought for, betraying our bond with humanity. Zachary slammed his fist on the table, the datapad clattering to the floor. Millions dead, worlds razed, and for what? Petty Kroll politicking? I won't let this stand. He stormed from the room, Neso hastening to follow. Zachary charged into the chambers of the Kroll leadership, the intercepted files brandished like a weapon. His voice shook with fury as he laid out the evidence of their treachery, demanding justice for the lives lost. But the Kroll officials only sneered, dismissing the accusations with a wave of their claws. Commander Zachary, you overstep, hissed the Kroll Prime Minister. These baseless claims insult our honor and undermine the fragile peace we've achieved. I think your human aggression is showing... Zachary sputtered in outrage, but the Prime Minister spoke over him. In fact, I suspect it is you who seeks to reignite hostilities for your own gain. Guards, place this human under arrest for inciting unrest. Armored Kroll soldiers surged forward, but Neso leaped between them and Zachary. No, I brought this evidence to light, and I stand by it. If you must punish someone, let it be me. The Prime Minister glared venomously at Neso. You disappoint me. Seize the traitor. Neso locked eyes with Zachary as the guards dragged him away. Never stop fighting for the truth, my friend. No matter the cost, never stop fighting. Zachary could only watch helplessly as Neso was hauled from the chamber. The Kroll leadership severed all ties with the human alliance that day, and Zachary's blood ran cold when news reached him of Neso's summary execution. With the alliance fractured and his faith in the cause shattered, Zachary resigned his commission. He returned to Earth, hoping to find some solace and stability. But the Earth Zachary returned to was not the one he'd left. The advanced ships of the lost colonies hovered over every city, and armed soldiers bearing the old Earth nation's flags patrolled the streets. Admiral Stark's face loomed from public screens, pronouncing the necessity of the lost colonies' rule. Never again will humanity cower before alien threats, Stark declared. Under our guardianship, Earth will become the stronghold from which humankind will claim its rightful dominion over the stars. Zachary stared in mounting horror at the military parades, the surveillance drones, the re-education camps for dissenters. As he listened to Stark's rhetoric about human supremacy, all he could see was the spectre of Gamilon brutality, wrapped in a human flag. Unable to remain silent, Zachary spoke out against the lost colonies' iron-fisted policies. He denounced Stark's authoritarian regime in public squares and on the net, but his warnings fell on deaf ears, drowned out by the lost colonies' propaganda. Soon Zachary found himself in the crosshairs. Stark's forces raided his home, branding him an agitator and seditionist. Forced into hiding, Zachary reached out to others who shared his fears. In dark rooms and encrypted channels, a resistance began to coalesce. Former soldiers, civic leaders, ordinary people determined to restore the dream of a free Earth. Zachary poured his heart into the cause, driven by the memory of Neso's sacrifice. Months of secret meetings and covert missions followed, the resistance striking against Stark's military-industrial complex. They sabotaged warships, liberated imprisoned dissidents, exposed the regime's crimes to the populace. With every daring raid, more citizens rallied to the rebellion's banner. But Stark's forces were closing in. Zachary knew they couldn't evade the net forever. The time had come for an all-or-nothing gambit, a decapitation strike against the very heart of Stark's power. Under the cover of night, Zachary led a hand-picked team of rebels in an assault on Stark's command citadel. They fought their way through layers of automated defenses, the stronghold's halls ringing with the crash of breaching charges and the zip of particle beams. Zachary kicked open the door to the command center, his rifle leveled at the figure silhouetted against the wall screens. Admiral Stark turned slowly, his face lit by the glow of a dozen tactical displays. "I knew you'd come, Zachary," Stark said calmly. "You never could accept the necessity of strength." "Your way is not strength," Zachary snarled. "It's the same cycle of brutality and hate that nearly destroyed us. I'm here to break that cycle." Stark's lips curled in a cold smile. "You're too late. My forces are already converging on this room you've lost." Zachary's finger tightened on the trigger. "Maybe, but you won't be here to see it." Stark's eyes widened. "You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel. And for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.